Hello and welcome to attaQ. My name is Jakob, I'm your host and you're watching a attaQ episode. In this episode, we're gonna be talking about Lagrange Synthesizer, the latest synth coming out from iceGear Instruments, or iceWorks as the company is called on the App Store. Okay, so before we get into this, have a look at this feature splash screen. So I made this feature splash screen for you, my dear viewers. I want you to have an easy overview of what type of features an app has. If you look closer at the upper right corner of this splash screen, you can also see whether an app is compatible with iPad or iPhone or both. You know, all the good stuff. So what is it that makes Lagrange so special? Well, the first thing is very subjective. You see, I absolutely love the iceGear Instruments overall sound. There's something that Satoshi does with his synths that just gives them a specific type of sound. Satoshi is the name of the developer actually making these awesome tools for us. Secondly, this synthesizer can produce almost any type of timbre because it has so many types of synthesis engines. If we go to an oscillator section and we press down on the box with the waveform in it, you can find everything from, the regular types of waveforms like saw, pulse, and triangle, but then you have like triple saw, triple square, and it just keeps on going. You also have FM synthesis, you've got a pitched noise type of engine, you even have car plus strong engines in here, or resonator synthesis, something that Satoshi is very good at. The plucked string, struck string, bowed string, bowed string? You have a bell type synthesis engine, and then you have a robot engine. And the robot engine is like a formant type engine. So when you tweak it around, it will actually create vowels in the sound. It's algorithm, not engine, Jacob. Thirdly, I'd like to mention this thing right here. This looks like something you would find inside an FM synthesizer. It kind of looks like an operator chart, the way you reroute the FM operators. But here is used to just reroute the oscillators, noise generators, filters, and amplifier. And this is something you should really play around with when you're tweaking your patches. You see, when you've sat down, you've tweaked your sounds for maybe, 20 minutes, you've got that awesome pad, save it, and then try rerouting the modules with this thing here, and you'll be able to get new patches out of it. Okay, so another thing I really like with Satoshi's synthesizers is the way that he has implemented all the modulation capabilities you have right into each of the modules here. What am I talking about? Well, if you look at the synth, you can see blue knobs, and those are the modulation knobs. If we look at the envelopes and the LFOs, and I'm saying envelopes and LFOs in plural because there's actually two envelopes and there are two LFOs, and you switch between them from A to B on this button here. Okay, so the way you use this is that if we go back to the oscillator module Let's say we want to modulate this oscillator with the B envelope. Well, the only thing we need to do is to tweak the envelope knob clockwise towards B. If we want to use the A envelope instead, we just tweak the knob counterclockwise towards A. It's really that simple. The LFO knob works the same way. A few other things to mention when it comes to the modulation abilities you have is the way that you can use both velocity and also key tracking to modulate stuff. Also, if you look at the envelope section, you do have a positive, negative setting, meaning you can invert the envelope or just turn it upside down basically. You also have tempo/clock sync modes for the LFOs and also key sync. Okay, so there's this one thing I really want to highlight, and it's the copy feature. If you look closely, you can find a copy feature inside the oscillator, filter, envelope, and LFO sections. And this feature will allow you to copy settings from A to B or B to A, making it easier to create patches within Lagrange. I really appreciate it when developers are thinking of features like this. This just makes work quicker, especially if there are a lot of controls and you simply just want to copy the settings you spent maybe 15 minutes on one page right into another, and then just keep on working from there. Now, we're not done yet. Let's have a look at the noise section here. If we open up the algorithm box, we can see 7 different modes. Now, the first 3 are actually just white noise, but with 3 different filter modes. Next comes some more interesting types of noise, like grain, digital, click, and sand. The noise section really is great. Apart from having so many types of noise to choose from, you also have the ability to modulate this section. And if you look over here, it even has its own independent amplifier envelope. Sure, it's only an AD, meaning you only have attack and decay, but it's pretty nice to have this because usually you don't find independent amplifier envelopes for noise in most synthesizers. And while we're on the topic of independent amp envelopes, you can see that you also have AD envelopes for both oscillators. As you can see, Lagrange offers a lot of sound sculpting tools. And you know, Satoshi went all out even with the filters, because when you open up the type box, you can find a 12 decibel per octave and a 24 decibel per octave low pass filter, you have a band pass filter, a high pass filter, and then you have a notch filter. The ones that I'm mostly interested in are the comb filters. And you know, when you're using a comb filter, you should really mess around with key tracking because it can create some very interesting synthesized sounds. Apart from there being a mixer module where you can mix all the levels from the oscillators and the noise generator, there's also this thing right here in the lower left corner where you can find a volume knob. You can also find an ARP button which turns on the arpeggiator. You also have a mono setting if you don't want your patches to be polyphonic. But keep your eyes on this box, because if you look right here, you can see a little tab, and if you press that, you have more settings where you can do some transposing, set the pitch bend range, and also the glide range. Now there are more hidden features. Up here, for instance, you can find the settings for the arpeggiator, and then you have something looking like a MIDI icon, and when you press this, you activate the MIDI CC mapping mode. Now, I have a long history with Satoshi's apps. You see, the thing that brought me into the iOS music making scene was an iPhone 5. And so when I got onto the platform, I came across Satoshi's apps very early. The first thing I found was Argon Synthesizer. And in app this thing is a real veteran. It was first released back in 2009, and I must have found it back in 2012 or 13 or something like that. Well, at the same time I discovered Argon Synth, I also discovered Xenon Synthesizer, and this one was released back in 2010. So Satoshi has been in the music app game even since before the iOS platform started getting known for something you could actually produce music with. In fact, the same year that Xenon Synthesizer was released, the Gorillaz published an album called The Fall. And another cool thing is that that album was made on an iPad. Damon from Gorillaz was using his iPad to record stuff while on tour with the band. And one of the apps that he lists that was used on that album is Xenon. Now, the reason to why I'm mentioning Argon Synth and Xenon Synth, two synthesizers that don't even exist on the App Store anymore, well, I find history to be not only important but also interesting. It is so nice to see what Satoshi has done with his craft, with his art, where he's taken it, how his apps have inspired known and unknown musicians and music producers over the years, becoming part of iOS music making history, while at the same time keeping on making new apps, honing his skills, and collecting all of his knowledge, everything he does, everything he has done into this one thing right here, Lagrange Synthesizer. And this, in my opinion, is the best one so far. Now, the only thing I haven't talked about is the delay section, and there's not that much to say apart from it's got a very nice modulation thing going on there, and this is something you can find in all of Satoshi's synthesizers. It sounds really good. It's got that typical iceGear instrument type sound to it. The only negative thing with it is that it's tempo locked and you can't unlock it from tempo, so you can't set the delay time in milliseconds, and this is something that I would like to be able to do. I don't want it locked to the tempo at all times, but that's pretty much the only negative thing I have to say about this synth. Now, if you found this video helpful in some way, if you found it useful, if you learned something, then why don't you hit the like down there, because that's really, really helpful. If you want to support me in other ways, then you can always share my videos to people who might be... If you want to help me in a financial way, then first, why don't you go check out my music? You might like it. If you like it, buy it. You'll be supporting me that way. If you want to support me in a more long-term way, then why not use Patreon? Also, I do enjoy it when you follow me on Instagram. Instagram is great because I just like the format of it. And if you share music related stuff, then tag me so I can see it. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.